Imagine handing your boss this like absolutely stunning AI-generated dashboard.
Oh, yeah, they look at the screen and their eyes just light up.
Exactly. They point at it and they say, yes, that is exactly what I want. Build it. And you walk back to your desk feeling like an absolute genius.
Right, until you sit down.
Until you sit down and reality hits you like a freight train.
Yeah.
You realize your beautiful dashboard is, well, it's completely fake.
Just a facade.
Yeah, there's no underlying data, there's no code. It is literally just a painting of a dashboard. So how do you turn a pretty picture into a functional Power BI or Tableau file without starting entirely from scratch?
That is the million-dollar question right now.
It totally is. Welcome to episode 30 of Data Design with Mockup. I'm your host, and today we are tackling this ultimate modern workflow bottleneck. Our mission for this deep dive is to figure out exactly how to bridge that massive gap between stunning AI dashboard mockups and actual working BI files.
Because, it's a scenario playing out in offices all over the world right now. I mean, if you look at the design landscape today, Claude Design, which Anthropic launched in research preview back on April 17th, 2026.
Right, running on Claude Opus 4.7.
Yeah, exactly. Powered by Opus 4.7. It is a phenomenal conceptual tool. I mean, you can prompt it or sketch something in a Claude.ai artifact or ask Claude Code for an HTML layout. And in less than 60 seconds, you have this polished, visually stunning layout.
It honestly feels like magic the first time you see it.
It does. But that magic stops strictly at the visual layer. Claude produces a wireframe. It does not produce a file you can actually use.
All right, there is no magic export to Power BI button.
No, definitely not. You're left holding an HTML web page or like a JPEG. And you certainly can't drag a JPEG into Tableau and expect it to analyze your company's financial data.
Which is so frustrating. We have this incredible tool that gets us halfway to the finish line, but then just like leaves us stranded on a cliff.
Yeah.
And the demand for actual functional files is immense. I mean, Microsoft Power BI has dominated the enterprise space for nearly 2 decades now. And stakeholders expect a connected, interactive file. They don't just want a static mockup.
They want to click on things and see the numbers move.
Exactly. So we are going to walk you through a specific 15-minute workflow using a bridge tool called mockups.ai. And just for context, Mokkup is a dedicated dashboard wireframing platform, already serving over 250,000 users. We'll break down exactly how to take that static Claude facade and translate it into a fully functional dashboard foundation.
It's a lifesaver, really.
But before we get to the solution, I feel like we need to dissect the problem. Like, why can't a BI developer just look at that Claude output and use it directly? What is mechanically breaking when we try to cross this gap?
Well, to the untrained eye, the Claude output looks like a finished product, right? It has boxes, it has numbers, charts.
It looks totally legit.
Right. But the moment that wireframe lands on a BI developer's desk, 4 structural pillars instantly collapse.
Oh, wow. Okay. 4 of them.
Yeah. Let's look at the KPI tiles first. In Claude, those tiles are just generic UI cards. They're literally just rectangles with text inside them.
And a true Power BI KPI visual is way more than a rectangle.
Way more. It requires complex underlying logic. It needs a target metric to compare against. It needs conditional status indicators that change color based on performance. And it usually requires a built-in trend line that understands a time series axis.
Wow, okay. And Claude doesn't generate any of that logic, I'm guessing.
None. It just draws a green arrow.
Just a green arrow. That's wow. And I bet that lack of logic bleeds into how the user actually interacts with the dashboard, right? Because I've noticed Claude rarely includes a slicer panel or a filter pane in its mockups unless you explicitly force it to.
And that is the second major working point, the missing filtering model. In business intelligence, a slicer isn't just, a drop-down menu. It dictates cross-filtering behavior across the entire page.
So if I select Q3, everything has to update.
Exactly. If you select Q3 in a slicer, the developer has to wire the backend so that the revenue chart, the regional map, and the product matrix all update in unison. Claude gives the developer 0 instructions on how that interactive filtering is supposed to work.
It's just entirely absent.
Right. Which brings us to the third issue, the tables. Claude generates a plain, flat UI table. But a BI developer almost always needs a matrix visual.
What's the difference there?
A matrix is a structural component that includes row hierarchies, the ability to dynamically expand and collapse categories, and calculated subtotal rows.
Oh, I see. So it's basically the difference between a static list printed on a piece of paper and an interactive pivot table.
Precisely. And that leads to the fourth and arguably most critical breaking point.
Because?
Nothing in that Claude wireframe binds to a semantic model.
Ah, right, the data relationships.
Yeah. A semantic model isn't just a spreadsheet of data. It is the invisible web of relationships between your data tables. It tells the software that your sales table is connected to your date table and your employee table.
And Claude is just totally blind to that.
Absolutely blind. Claude has no concept of this relational web. It is designing a picture of a dashboard, completely devoid of any structural ecosystem.
So it's not a flaw in Claude necessarily, it's just a, what do you call it, strict scope boundary.
Exactly. Claude is exploring layout and intent. It is not authoring semantic models.
The way I'm picturing this, it's kind of like building a Hollywood movie set, right? Like from
Yeah.
the front, it looks like a gorgeous, fully functioning house. But then you open the front door and there is no plumbing, there's no electricity, just wooden beams.
That is the perfect analogy. Claude gives you the plastic light switch on the wall, but the developer has to build the municipal power grid.
Right. But this brings up a massive question for me. If Claude just gives us an empty facade, a plastic switch with no wiring, why are we even starting with Claude at all? I mean, why not just open Power BI or Tableau on minute one and start building the real thing?
We start with Claude because of the unmatched speed of getting visual consensus from your stakeholders.
Okay, speed.
Yeah, think about it. If you build straight in Power BI, you are inherently building that complex electrical grid at the exact same time you are designing the light switches. You have to write DAX data analysis expressions, which is that complex formula language used in Power BI.
Oh yeah, DAX can be brutal.
It takes serious mental effort and time just to write a DAX measure to calculate, say, year-over-year variance for a specific region.
Right.
So if you do all that engineering, present it to your stakeholder, and they say, actually, I hate this layout, and I want to look at pipeline velocity instead of revenue.
Oh, that hurts. You haven't just lost the time it took to pick colors.
Exactly. You've lost hours or even days of heavy data engineering for a layout that is now literally going in the trash.
I see. So Claude gives you that crucial lightning fast yes or no on the visual direction before you spend a single minute writing actual code.
Precisely.
Okay, so if starting directly in Power BI wastes time because of the engineering overhead and Claude just gives us an empty facade, we obviously need a bridge.
Right.
We need a way to translate those pixels into actual BI components without doing it all by hand. And that is where mockup.ai comes in with method 1, the image upload workflow.
Yeah, since Mokkup is specifically built for dashboard wireframing, its AI is trained to recognize BI native components.
Let's walk through the tactical steps of how this actually works for you at home. Step 1 is basically getting the image out of Claude.
Right, you just export your Claude wireframe as an image. So if you're using Claude Design, you export the canvas to HTML or PDF and just take a screenshot. Or in a Claude.ai artifact, you screenshot the rendered preview.
But there are some strict constraints here, right?
Very strict. The screenshot must be a full frame, uncropped image in a single frame. Like no scrolling halfway down the page and stitching it together.
Okay, good to know.
Furthermore, Mokkup has an upload limit of 2 megabytes per file, and it only accepts JPG or PNG formats.
Wait, so if I'm taking a massive, uncompressed 4K screenshot on a giant, ultra-wide monitor, I'm going to hit a wall immediately.
You definitely will.
So you have to downscale that image, usually to roughly 1600 pixels wide, just to keep it within the limits. Why are the guardrails so strict on the image size, though?
Well, it really comes down to how AI vision models process visual context.
Okay, how so?
If you feed an AI a massive bloated image file or like an oddly cropped partial page, the vision model really struggles to understand the spatial relationships between the components on the screen.
Ah, I see.
So by keeping it standard and somewhat compressed, you ensure the AI accurately identifies, a chart versus a text box.
That makes total sense. Okay, so once you have that properly sized image, step 2 is uploading it into Mockup's conversational AI chat panel. And you pair that image with a very specific prompt.
Yes, and this is key. You don't just say, recreate this.
Right. You have to name the target BI tool, the specific audience, and the key metrics. So, for example, you would type, rebuild this layout as a Power BI dashboard for a regional sales manager. Keep the 4 KPI tiles across the top. Metrics, revenue, pipeline value, win rate, and average deal size.
Exactly. Naming the tool, specifically saying Power BI or Tableau, is the real trigger here.
Really? Just naming it changes the output.
Absolutely. That is what forces the AI to stop thinking in generic UI shapes and start pulling from its library of BI native components. The AI might, prompt you with a few clarifying questions, but once it has the context, it generates the screen.
And Mockup makes this pretty easy to try, right? The free tier gives you a project and 3 screens using their coin system, so it's incredibly accessible for a test run.
It is. But the real structural magic actually happens in step 3, which honestly, in our experience, is the step most developers completely skip, and that leads to immediate frustration.
Oh yeah. Step 3 is crucial. This is where you attach a sample data set, like a CSV or an Excel file, in the exact same chat window where you uploaded the image.
Yeah, because without that file, Mockups AI is completely guessing what your data architecture looks like.
So just insert generic placeholder text.
Exactly, just random lorem ipsum data. But by attaching a CSV, which, by the way, can be up to 30 megabytes, or an Excel file up to 5 megabytes, Mockup fundamentally changes how it builds the wireframe.
Because it's reading the column headers, right?
Right, it reads the column metadata and the data types. So if it sees a column named region underscore sales underscore USD formatted as currency, it anchors the visual components to your actual field names with representative mock data.
It's huge.
It bridges the gap between a generic layout and your real-world database schema.
But wait, I have to push back here for a second. If I go tell a data engineer at a Fortune 500 company to casually upload their CSV files to a third-party AI tool, enterprise security alarms are going to sound immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
Putting proprietary financial data into an AI is usually a massive red flag. So how does Mockup handle that?
That is a critical enterprise security point, and they actually handle it very elegantly. Mockups AI only reads the column metadata.
Just the headers?
Yes, it looks exclusively at the headers and the data types. It needs to know that a column is called revenue and that it contains floating point numbers, right? But it never accesses, reads, or stores the underlying rows of actual data.
Oh, that's incredibly smart. The process is entirely structural.
Exactly. Now, best practice dictates you should always use a scrubbed sample file that mirrors your schema anyway, just to be safe. But structurally, your actual data rows remain totally ignored and secure.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. But I'm looking at step 4, and I have to be honest, this sounds like a lot of manual labor.
How so?
Well, once the AI generates the wireframe based on the image and the metadata, it's just a starting point, right? The AI won't automatically add really complex elements like buttons or bubble charts. And furthermore, the AI doesn't take styling instructions through the prompt. So you have to manually adjust Claude's original colors, you have to fix the typography, and manually drag in the slicer panels.
Right, you do have to do some fine-tuning.
So wait, if I'm manually adding slicers and tweaking hex codes inside Mockup anyway, aren't I just doing the developer's job twice? Why not just do this manual styling directly inside Power BI?
It's a totally valid concern, but it all comes down to the economy of time.
Okay, walk me through that.
Doing manual styling, dragging and dropping components, and swapping out generic cards for BI native KPIs inside Mockup's wireframing interface, that takes minutes. It is a lightweight visual-first environment.
Right, it's built specifically for rapid design.
Exactly. If you skip this visual wireframing stage, go straight into Power BI and spend 3 days writing complex DAX measures, building relationships in your semantic model, and formatting the canvas.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. And then the stakeholder reviews it and says, well, actually, I need to slice this entire page by product category, not by sales quarter, and these metrics are entirely wrong.
You are facing a catastrophic loss of time.
Massive. Rewriting DAX measures and restructuring a semantic model to accommodate a new filter context after a full build takes days, sometimes weeks.
Wow, okay. So we are paying a very small tax in minutes right now inside Mockup to avoid a massive penalty in days later inside Power BI.
That is the core philosophy. Fail fast and fix fast in an environment designed for rapid iteration before we ever touch the heavy engineering tools.
Yeah, that perfectly sets up step 5, which is sharing the link for sign-off. You send the live Mockup wireframe link directly to the stakeholder. They can leave comments right on the layout, you debate the metric placement, and you basically settle all those architectural arguments before a single line of DAX is written.
Yes, and once everyone finally agrees, step 6 is the export. One click produces an actual .pbix or .twbx file that your BI software can open natively.
And we should note, those two export files behave a little differently under the hood, just due to how the respective software handles data layers.
Right. Tableau and Power BI are very different beasts.
Yeah. For Tableau, the .twbx export is incredibly comprehensive. It carries the full layout, the chart structure, the calculated fields, and the uploaded dataset is already attached and ready to go.
Which is fantastic.
But Power BI's semantic layer parity is a bit different. The .pbix export carries the complete layout and the visual structure perfectly, but it doesn't necessarily pre-wire the complex DAX measures just yet.
Right, but the BI developer is still saving immense time because the entire structural build and the visual formatting is already finished for them.
Exactly. So that entire image upload process, that is method one, we take a picture of the Claude mockup and we force the bridge tool to recreate it pixel for pixel, but with the BI plumbing installed.
Yeah, but let's look at a completely different scenario.
Okay, let's hear it.
What if the specific layout Claude made wasn't actually that great?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Right, like Claude might have come up with a really brilliant combination of metrics, but the way it placed the boxes on the screen feels clunky or just confusing.
Yeah. And honestly, if you've ever sat in a stakeholder meeting, you know they rarely care about the exact hex codes or the padding between the boxes anyway. They care about whether pipeline value is the right leading indicator. They care about the intent.
Exactly. So if it's the idea you want to preserve and not the exact pixel placement, how do we handle that?
That brings us to method two, rebuilding straight from the prompt, instead of relying on the image.
I love this method.
It's so efficient. This method focuses entirely on translating intent. So instead of taking a screenshot of Claude's layout, you go back to the original text prompt you used to generate it. Or, even better, you ask Claude to write a structured brief summarizing the wireframe it just made.
Oh, having Claude write the brief is a pro move.
Totally. You take that text brief, which explicitly specifies the target audience, the core KPIs, the preferred chart types, and the necessary filters, and you literally just paste that text directly into Mockup's conversational AI.
It's basically the difference between adapting a book into a movie versus doing a shot-for-shot remake of another film.
Yes. Method one is the shot-for-shot remake. You want the final product to look exactly like the picture you uploaded. But method two is adapting the novel. You capture the essence, you keep the core characters, which in this case are your metrics and KPIs, but you let the new director, Mockup's AI, arrange the scenes and visuals in a way that makes the most sense for the new medium.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. And practically speaking, method two is vastly superior in a few specific scenarios.
Like when?
First, when the Claude layout is just visually generic and simply not worth preserving pixel for pixel.
Sure.
Second, if your screenshot is incredibly dense and you just cannot get it under that 2 megabyte compression limit without totally ruining the image quality.
Oh, that's a great point.
And third, if you are designing several linked screens, Mockup generates one screen per AI request. So if you're building a complex multi-page dashboard with drill-throughs, feeding it structured text prompts for each individual page is often much cleaner and more cohesive than trying to manage and upload multiple disjointed screenshots.
Right. That forces the developer to really evaluate what matters to their audience. I mean, ask yourself, do your stakeholders care more about the exact look or the core metrics? If they are heavily invested in a highly specific visual aesthetic, you use method one. But if they care about the strategic narrative of the data, method two is definitely your path.
Yeah, the trade-off is just that method two completely discards whatever specific layout decisions Claude originally made. You're giving up the pixels to keep the core idea.
Okay, so having established how Mockup acts as this vital visual bridge for both pixels and intent, I feel like we have to acknowledge an entirely different approach for a very specific type of user.
Oh, the developer path.
Yeah. We've spent this entire deep dive focusing on the business stakeholder, like the manager or the VP, who demands to see a pretty picture before they approve a project. But what if you are a full-stack data developer? What if you own the dashboard end-to-end? You don't need visual consensus from anyone, and your only priority is writing the data model.
In that scenario, you can actually skip the visual wireframing bridge entirely.
Wait, really? How is that possible? Because we established earlier that Claude cannot spit out a .pbbix file. How does a developer bypass the wireframing tool and still get a functional dashboard?
By utilizing a newer, highly specific project format called .pbip, which stands for Power BI project format.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Yeah, so historically, Power BI saved everything as a .pbix file, which is essentially a locked binary blob. It's a black box. AI cannot easily read or write a binary blob. But the .pbip format changes the architecture entirely. It stores every visual, every metadata definition, and the entire data model not as a binary blob, but as individual JSON files on your hard drive.
And JSON is just text. It is a standard text-based blueprint format used across software development.
Exactly. And Claude Code, Anthropic's coding agent, is incredibly proficient at reading and writing text-based code like JSON.
Oh, wow.
So developers who are comfortable with command line interfaces can use tools like PBI-CLI or Microsoft's Power BI modeling MCP server, they can literally have Claude Code write the Power BI report visuals, configure the semantic model, and author the DAX measures directly into those text-based JSON files.
That is wild. You are no longer treating the dashboard like a visual canvas. You are treating it like a standard software code base.
You're just compiling code.
But I see the dividing line here, and it is razor sharp. Using mockup as a wireframing bridge means we might lose Claude's exact UI polish, but we get back a real reviewable visual file that stakeholders can actually look at, argue over, and approve. We're basically trading pretty pixels for functional, reviewable architecture. But if we go this developer route, utilizing the .pbip JSON codebase, we are trading visual review entirely for pure, unadulterated coding speed.
That is the fundamental trade-off. If you use the Claude Code to JSON route, you're producing thousands of lines of text that no business stakeholder can possibly review.
Yeah, you cannot hand a VP of sales a JSON array and ask, does this layout make sense for the Q3 pipeline review? They'll look at you like you have two heads.
Exactly. Furthermore, this is highly specific to Power BI's new product structure. There is no equivalent text-based developer path for Tableau right now.
Got it.
So, if you have human stakeholders who need to point at a screen and achieve visual consensus, the wireframing workflow is mandatory. You must use method 1 or method 2. The developer path is incredibly powerful, but it entirely removes the human element of visual design.
So basically, let's bring this all together for you listening. We started with a fundamental problem. Claude is unbelievably fast at getting layout reactions. It gives you this stunning Hollywood-style facade in under 60 seconds. But it simply cannot produce a BI file.
No, it can't.
And that isn't a bug in the AI. It is a strict scope boundary. You cannot write a cleverer prompt to magically extract a functional .pbix file from an AI vision model. The fix requires a dedicated bridge tool designed specifically for dashboard wireframing, like mockup.
You have to bridge the gap.
Right. You either use method 1, taking a constrained screenshot and having mockup translate those pixels into BI components while securely anchoring the visuals to your CSV metadata, or you use method 2, passing the structured intent of your metrics directly into the tool to generate a new layout.
And it's also worth noting, if you want a bit of a cheat code for the future, Mokkup actually offers pre-built BI native templates across sales, finance, marketing, and HR.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you haven't built the Claude wireframe yet, you can skip the AI generation step entirely next time and just start from a template that is already perfectly mapped for Power BI and Tableau.
Oh, that's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
But for the conceptual layouts you've already generated in Claude today, this visual conversion workflow is the only bridge from a beautiful idea to a connected functional reality. It takes roughly 15 minutes, and I promise you, it'll save you days of DAX headaches and semantic modeling rework.
It really will. And if we pull back and look at the broader trajectory of our industry, this entire workflow raises a really fascinating question.
Let's hear it.
As AI agents get increasingly better at generating underlying data models and writing complex DAX code directly, which we are obviously already seeing with that .pbip developer route, will the wireframing phase eventually disappear entirely?
Oh, wow.
Right. Like, will AI reach a point where it simply generates the finished, fully coded product instantly based on a single prompt? Or, no matter how advanced the underlying code generation gets, will human stakeholders always demand a low-stakes, pretty picture to argue over before they actually trust the final data?
That is such a compelling thought to leave you with today. Will we ever outgrow the need to stand on the sidewalk, admire the painted facade, and debate the window placements before we actually pay to install the plumbing? Honestly, human nature suggests we probably won't. We just love to argue over the paint colors too much. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 30 of Data Designed with Mokkup. We hope you take these methods, whether it's the pixel-perfect remake or capturing the essence of the intent, and apply them to streamline your next design-to-development handoff. Keep building, keep bridging the gap, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.